Good afternoon and welcome home to WCLU. Chris Houchins in studio with you this afternoon. We've got a very special in-studio guest this afternoon as well, U.S. Congressman Brett Guthrie. Welcome, Congressman.
Chris, thanks for having me here, and nice to talk to everybody in Glasgow and Barron County.
We're always
and surrounding counties.
And surrounding counties. We got out a little further too. So, wanted to stop by and just chat with us a little bit about what's going on in Washington. You're back in the district, and I guess the main thing on most things, and we can't talk about anything else until we talk about this this one thing.
And why I'm here.
Yeah, the shutdown. So tell us a bit about what's going on with the shutdown.
Washington and being here in the studio. Well, I'm here in the studio because of what's not going on in Washington. The House passed a bill to fund the government, to send it over to the Senate in plenty of time, way before September 30th. Chuck Schumer has chosen not to deliver the necessary Democrat votes, and he doesn't have to deliver Democrat votes if he chooses not to filibuster, but they've chosen to block the Senate, and therefore we're currently on what's out today is October the 16th, and we have not had a budget since October the 1st. It's frustrating. Fortunately, President Trump has directed the Secretary of Defense, Secretary of War, to move money around. So you only can spend appropriated money. So the president can't spend money that's not been appropriated by Congress. But at the end of the year, there are different accounts that have excess funds, and so the president has ordered the Secretary had excess to move that money around to pay our troops. But there's not enough money left over in the FAA budget for our air traffic controllers. There's not enough money in Homeland Security for our TSA. We have ICE agents. We have all these other people out protecting us every day that are not going to get paid because Chuck Schumer is holding up the bill. And to explain people, you'll hear Hakeem Jeffries, who's the minority leader in the House, and say, where the Republicans have the House, they have the Senate, and they have the presidency, why don't they get it done? In the Senate, if the Democrats choose, they can require a 60-vote threshold, and that's what they've done. And so there's only 53 Republicans, and so even with 52 Republicans voting for it, you can't pass it without the Democrats, and they've chosen to shut down the government.
And so obviously, that's average day-to-day Americans' life. That's kind of far away, but it does hit locally. Like you said, troop payments are important right here locally. Mammoth Cave is shut down.
The Park Service. I mean, we have brave men and women that work for the Park Service as well. And we have Fort Knox, not just the men and women wearing uniform, but the men and women that serve those who wear uniforms. We have Abraham Lincoln's birthplace and boyhood home is close by as well. And it affects everyone. And we can go back, and I think everybody has pulled up video after video after video of Chuck Schumer saying this never should happen until it's his turn to do it. And here's the difference. He's got a tough job. I'll at least give him that. He's in a tough job. Mitch McConnell was in the same spot. Mitch McConnell was leader of the minority when Chuck Schumer was majority leader, Joe Biden was president, and Nancy Pelosi was speaker. And I think most of us know in Kentucky, if you don't believe it, look at the political ads. Mitch McConnell gave political capital because he thought he had to be a statesman and govern and not just block everything that comes down the path. I mean, he did block things, but not everything that comes down the path, and government shutdowns and those types of things. And so if you're going to be the leader of your party, sometimes you got to make tough decisions and be a statesman, not a politician. And my friend and leader Mitch McConnell was a statesman. Chuck Schumer, unfortunately, has chosen to be a politician, and it's hurting people.
So what is the light at the end of the tunnel? How do we get out of it?
Well, this is what we need to do, and there's some things they want to negotiate and talk about. They need to vote to open up the government. We didn't put any extra spending. We didn't take spending cuts. It's the same amount of money that they all voted for. Matter of fact, they voted for this level when Joe Biden was president because we couldn't get them to vote for a budget last year. So we're operating on a continuing resolution, which means we're spending the same level of funding, which frustrates a lot of Republicans, quite honestly. But we said, let's give Chuck Schumer the Biden numbers, and they want the Biden numbers plus $1.5 trillion in new spending. They're talking about it in terms of health care. So they're talking about the Affordable Care Act tax credits. That's Obamacare, the tax credits, because it's not been affordable. It's anything but affordable. But here's the story behind that. So they'll get on TV and say, we're fighting for health care. You'll hear them very passionately say that. The reason these are expiring is because the Democrats set them to expire in the Inflation Reduction Act, which was their reconciliation bill that no Republican voted for. So they have their one partisan bill. We did the one big beautiful bill that was all Republicans. They did the Inflation Reduction Act. And the reason they expired, they're extremely expensive. So they took the money that would go into keeping these tax credits going forward and spent it on the Green New Deal. So when they say they're sitting there fighting for these tax cuts, when they had the opportunity to do it, they spent the money on millionaires and billionaires. You have a lot of discussion of solar farms here. The subsidies going to those solar farms, that was taken from those tax credits. Windmills, when you buy a Tesla and you get a $7,500 tax break, that comes from those. Stacey Abrams, who was a failed candidate for governor of Georgia, created a charity that did not exist until this bill passed and had $100 in her checking account, got a $2 billion grant. That's where that money went. So don't be fooled when they get on television. Of course, the national press never calls them out on it, that they were for these tax credits because they set them to expire.
So looking at something else local, of course, it's a beautiful fall day here in Barron County, and Barron County is a primarily ag county, and mostly cattle and hay, but there's a lot of row crop as well. And soybeans and corn are being harvested right now.
You know, in this listening area for sure. I know there are a lot of cattle here, and I think cattle's okay.
Yeah.
But in pricing. But soybeans and corn
soybeans are
and
a
row
problem.
crops are an issue.
And some of that is overseas trade. Of course, we sell those soybeans to China sometimes, and with the trade war.
We're having some issues with China and soybeans. I know the president's challenging them on that because they're just not going to buy soybeans even when they put the tariff on them. They're actually sort of boycotting, I guess, is our soybeans. And so he's working on that. The thing that when you have trade issues and you're trying to resolve trade issues, the things that we trade the most are things we're the most productive at. And our farmers, our men and women who farm, are the most productive in the world by far. So that's why we trade. I tell people all the time when they talk about trade, and sometimes you'll get just a reflex. We need to bring everything back and have no trade. I hear that from people a lot sometimes. And I'll say, well, look at a row of corn, every third ear of corn. Look at a row of soybeans, every third soybean, or look at a field of soy, every third soybean goes overseas. And so when you're in these trade negotiations the president's in, and China is one of the big last ones that we're really trying to work through, they retaliate against our most productive, which hurts their citizens actually. So hopefully we're going to get a resolution to this quickly. President Trump says he's going to do everything within his power and his authority through the Ag Department to make this as least painful as we can. So when you have the trade side of it, then you've had the drought. You had the drought. In some areas of the country has like a record production. So you have our farmers that have high inputs. I mean, there's a worst combination. High input costs, low price because of some of the other production around the country, and then low product not because of our ability to farm, is because of every now and then nature takes its course, and we've had a drought. And so I'm going to do everything within my power to work with the president, do everything within his power to see that we make our farmers as whole as we possibly can.
Good deal.
Well, we have the farm crop insurance, which I've always voted for in the ag bill, and it looks like a year that farmers are going to use a lot of crop insurance, unfortunately. But I've always supported that.
So good news overseas, nevertheless, but still good news. A little bit of looks like peace in the Mideast, and so talk a little bit about that.
What a great move the president has done, and I agree. I remember, and I'd been in a meeting, and I still can't talk a lot about it because it wasn't a public meeting, and about Iran. I remember when he got a lot of criticism for he said he obliterated Iran's nuclear position. People were saying that he hadn't. I can tell you, I felt strongly that he did. You know, they would say, well, they could be up in 7, if you remember, whatever. I said, yeah, but if they know what happens if they do try to bring it back up, right? And so taking Iran off the table, I mean, if you just look at the dominoes of how that happened, so you have the Houthis in Yemen, you have the Hamas in Gaza, you have the Hezbollah in Lebanon. They were all being supported by Iran, who Barack Obama and Joe Biden felt, well, we just need to treat them like adults, and they'll act like adults. Well, it's the same argument that the mayor made in Washington, the city council in Washington, D.C. If you'll treat carjackers like adults, they'll behave like adults. And we saw what happened. Fortunately, President Trump's changed that dynamic. And so by taking Iran off the table, that's the financial support of all these people. And so his decisions have led us directly to this point. And his push, because then you got Prime Minister Netanyahu, who knows he's got Gaza, as Hamas, and he's always said there will not be a Gaza without Hamas. With Hamas, I'm sorry. Not be a Gaza with Hamas. We're going to obliterate Hamas. And essentially he's taken out their leadership, but you know, they still sort of exist. And so President Trump was able to take Netanyahu, all right, you've destroyed a lot of Gaza, you've destroyed their leadership, you've destroyed their group. And so he was able to bring all those different groups together. But the courage to deal with Iran the way that he did is really the the capstone, not the capstone, the cornerstone, which all of this Mideast policy is based on. You see it in Yemen, in Saudi Arabia. You'll see it with all the others. And now he's got his son-in-law, Jared Kushner, Steve Wickliffe, who I've gotten to meet a little bit. I don't really know him that well, bringing it together. And so, President Trump's off to, not off physically traveling, but off to Ukraine and Russia to see if he can solve that issue.
So going all the way.
So he's going to be the world's peacemaker, it looks like. Well, we hope and pray that's true.
Peace is always good.
That's what's frustrating is how nobody on the other side wants to give him credit for that. You hear that? There are big rallies across the country this week. Or most of the world's like having rallies cheering President Trump for what he did. They're having the No Kings rallies out. And, I remember when they passed the Affordable Care Act, and the reason why I didn't vote for it, the Obamacare, and explain why I didn't vote for it. And I would say, I always started with the first thing I hope is I eat my words. I hope that this is why I think it was wrong. This is why I didn't vote for it. Turned out to be right. But I said, if everybody got health care, if everybody got to have the doctor that they wanted, and the prices of health care go down now, they're cheaper, say today, than they were 10 years ago, then I'll eat my words and say, boy, that really worked. And it didn't. So people ought to be able to, if it's the other side of the house, say, yeah, that was a good one. We should give him credit for that.
So stretching all the way back to here in this room, actually. So we're on an AM radio station in Glasgow, Kentucky, 1490 AM, and also our translators at 103.1 and 1230 AM and 104.7 FM. WCLU went on the air as WKAY back in 1946. So we've been serving this community. Next year we'll celebrate 80 years of being on 1490 AM. And so AM radio stations are very important to the local community. News, weather, having people be able to listen to their elected officials here on the air like this. But there are some auto manufacturers who don't want to put AM radios in cars anymore. And so there's a bill in Congress to talk about that. And that of course, that's under the FCC and under the committee that you chair.
Committee, yes.
And so it's right up your alley.
So those who are listening, these new high-tech cars where you even have to pay a subscription just to get access to the radio on the cars, or not the radio, the entertainment system on the car, I guess is what you're saying. And they're leaving out. Right, you can't even do it as an option for AM radio, and you do it all on your phone or so forth. And so, there's a bill that's actually passed out of the Energy and Commerce Committee. I voted for it to go to the floor of the House to say that everybody has to have an AM radio in their car. We're trying to figure out how long the bill lasts, and let's reevaluate it 7, 8, 10 years. So I think right now we're at 7 years. I think we're 8, maybe 8 years. I can't remember if it's 8 or 7. But so that bill's passed out of committee. It is waiting to go on the House floor. Currently, I'm home because the Senate has the government shut down, and we get the government opened up. I assume that'll be a high priority bill for us to pass.
What else is coming up in the Energy and Commerce Committee?
Well, the big thing is you got the energy side. So what I do, my committee, so thanks to the people listening for allowing me to do this. And I would not be able to do what I'm doing without the people in this area that are listening to us, and I appreciate it. But I'm one of the 3 big committee chairs. So you've got the Speaker of the House, the leader, the whip, and then you got the 3 big chairs. You've got the Ways and Means. People have heard of that one. It's like only you hear that word in government.
Right.
Appropriations, which spends money. And mine's Energy and Commerce. So what is that? And so I always like to explain to my wife so if you think of cities and their industries, so we're Dallas and Houston. So gas and oil, energy. That's obviously does that. The environment, the environmental EPA is under our jurisdiction. So Hollywood. So we talk about AM radio. So broadcast, cable, radio, streaming. All of the services, telecom, Silicon Valley, Seattle, but old school manufacturing, Detroit. Also, so we had the radio side of our jurisdiction and the automotive side of our jurisdiction come together in the bill we just discussed, and then it's all the healthcare. So it's all the hospitals, and so I visited TJ, and I remember right after we passed the bill, they came out on a list. I think the governor said that they were going to close, and they said that was just absolutely not true. So hopefully people have gotten that. They have no idea how he was put on a list, or why people would even promote a list if they don't know how it came about. But it really affected employees there when the governor said that.
And it scares the people in the community.
We're about to close, and they're going, no, we're not about to close, and affected people in the committee. So those are all of our jurisdictions. So we've met with the hospitals and met with a lot of them, and currently, what we want to do is, so one of the things the Democrats want to undo in the One Big Beautiful Bill is the Medicaid reforms we had. And the Medicaid reforms, if you're illegal and eligible, if you're illegal to be in the United States, if you're ineligible to be on Medicaid, and if you're able to work, that affects you. If it doesn't affect you, because typical Medicaid, single mothers, people with disabilities didn't have any changes in the Medicaid benefits. And so we have all of that. So say that to say that, so we're different pieces of our jurisdiction. Those who are college sports fans, we also have NIL. We're trying to come up with a standard for the country for that. And then the big thing, though, I think is the moving technology, AI, artificial intelligence, which is just massive data, massive computing, which takes energy. And so communities can benefit from that, as we had some announcements here.
Yeah, yesterday, Tate is coming, and
absolutely,
they do data centers.
Not a data center, but the serves data
infrastructure.
centers.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you get data centers, I've had people say, "Well, I bring a data center to an area because it's really high paying jobs, but it's not as many as like a factory, let's say. But then you start getting the people who supply the data centers who want to be near where the data centers are. And so what's driving that is energy, and the concerns people have if a data center comes is, will it drive up my energy prices? We have to expand energy. Kentucky is an energy producing state. It's a low cost energy state. If we just get the regulators, I don't even say get the regulators out of the way, because we don't want to be China, where it says we're going to build this coal plant here, and if you don't like it, then just live next to it. That's not what we want. But we want the regulators to be efficient and the process to be efficient, and not be sometimes people who oppose everything. There are people who are against everything. They will fight through the courts just because they know if it ties it up long enough, the investors will go somewhere else. And so we want to make that process efficient so we can produce the energy, because AI, Europe, we know what not to do. We can look at Europe. Europe's energies are 3 times higher than ours because of all the regulations they put on energy. Their regulatory structure essentially keeps people from investing in high tech in Europe. The other player I mentioned was China. So AI and the platform of which the world operates on AI is either going to be run by the values of a communist totalitarian state or a free and open society like ours. And we have to win that battle. And that's the battle that I'm in the middle of. And I'm only there because the people listening to us allow me to do it. And I really appreciate it.
Well, we appreciate you coming by this afternoon and expounding a little bit on what's going on, or maybe what's not going on in Washington right now.
Well, the things that need to be going on
is
that we need to be back fighting China.
That's absolutely so.
We don't want to fight them in the battlefield. We want to fight them in our economy, and fight them and make sure we're dominant in the value. Think about if communist China, because there's always concerns with TikTok, but if communist China controlled everything? It's really scary to think about.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for all you're doing for this area, and thank you for stopping by. Well, you're always welcome here at WCLU and Commonwealth Broadcasting, so appreciate you coming by. We'll have news coming up at the top of the hour here on WCLU.